Because you can fake for a long time, but one day you're going to show yourself to be a phony.
That's for true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what these, a lot of people are doing these days. Watch people.
No, you probably won't be here right now.
Significant addition to this vital field of knowledge. It sets forth in fascinating detail the history, from earliest recorded times, of the black races of the Middle East and Africa. Mr. Windsor's discussion of Islamic civilization and the movement of the black Hebrews to allied parts of Africa is edifying and absorbing. Readers, regardless of race, will find this factual story of a noble heritage a valuable enrichment to their knowledge of world history. Distributed by TEL T0415EE Lushana Books Fax 773-975-0045-1804-06 3AE Biography Rudolph Windsor was born in Long Branch, New Jersey. After living in a number of Jersey communities, his family settled in Philadelphia where he attended community college, studying psychology and political science, Gratz College, where he majored in Hebrew/Aramaic studies, and Temple University, where he majored in Middle Eastern studies. In addition, he has 4 sons and a daughter. He says of his book, "My motive in writing it was to give the true history of the Afro-American, which has been excluded from textbooks." Professor Windsor is a strong advocate of the economic and cultural development of the black community. In serving the community he has been a member and president of several organizations, was a delegate to the Black Power Conference of 1968 and was designated a delegate, on behalf of Ethiopian Jews, to meet with Mr. Makonnen, an official of the Ethiopian mission to the United Nations in the early 1970s. Moreover, Mr. Windsor is the author of the book, The Valley of the Dry Bones, subtitled, The Conditions That Face Black People in America. As a result of some difficulties with several book companies, Mr. Windsor established his own company called Windsor's Golden Series Publications. In 1988, Mr. Windsor redesigned his first book, From Babylon to Timbuktu. Again, Mr. Windsor over the years, has appeared on radio and TV talk shows, lectured at congregations, organizations, universities, and has traveled to Europe and the Middle East. Dinefit Dinner Honors Greenum and Emma Derger. A message from Ed Asner. D-9324 Vogel Julie Skudma Student Volumere. She is pictured here with some of her new friends at Kiryat Gat equals Ojuyu Inua, M30, is equals NXA 7 to 530 MZZOX carat M. From Babylon to Timbuktu, A History of the Ancient Black Races including the Black Hebrews by Rudolph R. Windsor. Windsor's Golden Series P.O. Box 310, Chicago, 1st and 13th, System. Library. Daddy so hard to rear her 5 children and who incurred to my mother, Lita Jones, who worked aged me in the writing of this book. Preface. This book is intended as a supplement to existing literature on African and Black Hebrew history. To get a background knowledge of the history of the black races, the reader is urged to start at the beginning and continue to the end. The aim is to present material that will not only inform and interest the reader but will impart truth, self-confidence, and racial pride to the black man, and at the same time enlighten the general public concerning the contributions to civilization of the ancient black races. In general, I have tried to follow a chronological approach in the book, but it has been difficult to maintain a 100% consistency. Certain subjects are to some extent repeated because I have elsewhere dealt with another phase of the same material. In many cases a refresher is provided in order to bring the reader up to date. I have consulted many scholars in the compilation of this work. Basil Davidson is an authority on African history. Moreover, Alan H. Godbey and Joseph Williams are excellent scholars on the Black Hebrews, but I have not hesitated to differ from them in some instances. It behooves me to express my debt to the faculty of Gratz College who taught me much, and helped make this book possible. Among these are such distinguished scholars as Dr. Eliezer Goelman, Dean, Daniel Isaacman, Registrar, Dr. William Chomsky, Dr. Samuel Pitlick, Dr. Samuel Kurland, Dr. Sidney M. Fish, Dr. Esra Sharishevsky, Dr. Samuel T. Latches, Abraham Marthan, Rabbi Shlomo Balter, and Rabbi Shlomo Margalit. I also want to express my gratitude to my family, uncles, and friends who gave me much encouragement. Rupier Phr Windsor. Ben 3 Contents. Preface 9I Ancient Black Civilization 13 Sumer and Kish 17 Il Tuesday Orison or the WHRRE Race 18 3 Zoroastrian Culture Goes to Europe 26 ago in the land. Yoruba Jews of Nigeria. Conclusion. Epilogue. Ancient black civilization. More than 6,000 years ago in the land called Mesopotamia there developed the most remarkable civilization then known to mankind. This civilization was centered between the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers. These rivers begin in the mountains of Armenia and flow in a southeastern direction toward the Persian Gulf. The soil of this area is tremendously fertile because of the alluvial deposits brought down by the two rivers. European civilization developed from ancient black civilization. Without this black civilization, white domination and influence as we know it today would have been improbable. A number of different tribes were entrenched in the southern part of the Tigris-Euphrates region. This southern section was known at different times by many names, among which are Sumer, Akkad, or Akkad, and Chaldea, but the name best known to us is Babylonia. This area was also the location of the Garden of Eden, and the people of this region were jet black. I shall prove conclusively that the black people have the most ancient history of all humans. The best available source of proof is the history of the Jews, known as the Bible. In Genesis 2:10 it is written, "And a river went out of Eden to water the garden, and from thence it was parted and became into 4 heads." There were 4 rivers which watered the Garden of Eden. I shall cite the 3rd and the 4th rivers first, then I shall proceed to the 1st and the 14 from Babylon to Timbuktu 2nd rivers, because it fits better into my line of reasoning. Genesis 2:14 reads, "And the name of the 3rd river is Hiddekel, that is it which goeth toward the east of Assyria, and the 4th river is Euphrates." Commentators and scholars have identified the river Hiddekel. They say it is the Tigris River. Now I shall cite Genesis 2:13. "And the name of the 2nd river is Gihon, the same is it that compasseth the whole land of Ethiopia." Because the Garden of Eden is associated with the land of Ethiopia, we can conclude that the people were black. Rashi, the 11th century commentator on the Bible, said that the Gihon is the Nile River that flows through eastern Africa. Rashi, most likely, makes this point because the Nile flows in Ethiopia and into Egypt. Dr. Spieser, who was a professor at the University of Pennsylvania, said, "There is no basis for the detoring of the Gihon to Ethiopia." He meant the Ethiopia in Africa, not to mention the Pishon in various remote regions of the world. I agree with Dr. Spieser that we should not search for the Gihon in Africa, nor the Pishon in a remote area of the earth, but that we should search for the Pishon and the Gihon in the Tigris-Euphrates Valley. There were 2 Ethiopian nations in ancient times, Castern Ethiopia and Western Ethiopia. This point Dr. Spieser failed to elucidate, possibly because of an oversight. There was an Ethiopian civilization in southern Mesopotamia, Babylon, but the people in this region did not use their tribal name, Ethiopia, to designate their nationality. They called themselves by the name of the cities that they constructed and inhabited, or they called themselves by an event that happened there. For example, God confused the language of the people at the Tower of Babel. Babel means confusion in Hebrew. This is why the Ethiopian tribes called themselves Babylonians, referring to the name of the city that they constructed. There are many nations that are not designated by their true nationality. For example, the white Australians came from England, but those Englishmen who live in Australia do not call themselves by their ancestral name *, they call themselves by the name of the country which they colonized, which is Austral. He people of Australia are represented in the United Nations by the name of their nation, Australia, and not under their ancestral name, England. The people who resided in the lower part of the Tigris-Euphrates Valley were Ethiopian, black in complexion. We read in Genesis 10:8 that Cush begot Nimrod. The word Cush means Ethiopia, and Cush was the father of the Ethiopians. For the meaning of the word Cush, see Webster's New Collegiate Dictionary. Nimrod was a mighty Ethiopian conqueror and builder of the land of Shinar. We find in Genesis 10:8-10 that Nimrod ruled over such cities as Babylon, Erech, Akkad, or Akkad. All these cities are situated in the land of Shinar. Another name for Shinar is Sumer. This civilization was of a high order, and one of the oldest civilizations in ancient times. In Genesis 10:7 we read, "And the sons of Cush, Seba and Havilah." Now we have learned that Havilah was the son of Cush, who was an Ethiopian. The word Havilah became the name of a tribe in a region, known as the land of Havilah. And the Havilites, Ethiopians, lived in the land of Havilah. Moreover, scholars have located this land near the Persian Gulf. In search of the land of Havilah, we find that there was another Havilah who was one of the sons of Joktan, read Genesis 10:26-29, but this Havilah was of the line of Shem, read Genesis 10:22. Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The children of Shem are called Shemites. The sons of Ham are called Hamites, and the sons of Japheth are called Japhites. We should not confuse Havilah, the son of Joktan, with Havilah, the son of Cush. Now it is logical to conclude that Havilah, the son of Cush, is intended in Genesis 2:11 to be the Havilah of the land of Havilah, because that Havilah * was a Cushite, Ethiopian. His habitation would naturally be adjacent to his brother, Nimrod, who ruled Babylon. Abraham was one of the fathers of the 12 tribes of Israel, and Abraham's father, Terah, came from the land of Ur of the Chaldees, Genesis 11:26-28. The land of Ur of the Chaldees was located at the southern part of the Euphrates. The Chaldeans were one of many Cushite tribes. Cush means black, according to the Bible dictionary. This dictionary defines further, Cush, the name of a son of Ham, apparently the eldest, and of a territory or territories occupied by his descendants. The Cushites appeared to have spread along tracts extending from the higher Nile to the Euphrates and the Tigris rivers. History affords many connections between Babylon, Arabia, and Ethiopia. There is more than adequate evidence that the ancient nations of Babylon, Akkadian, Sumer, the Chaldea were inhabited by Cushite tribes, Ethiopians, on all sides of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. The Pishon and the Gihon rivers mentioned in Genesis 2:11-13, went and turned through the land of Havilah, somewhere near the Persian Gulf. Although it is difficult to identify these 2 rivers exactly, most likely the center of the Garden of Eden was in the lower part of the Tigris-Euphrates Valley. This was the most fertile region in the Middle East, with its many canals and lakes. No wonder it was called the Garden of Eden. It was so well watered that the vegetation looked better than an English park. The Tigris and Euphrates rivers join before they reach the Persian Gulf, then they separate again, making 4 rivers of the channels of these 2 rivers. This is one of the theories of the top-rated authorities. The modern names of the rivers that flow into the Tigris and Euphrates are, the Great Zab, south of Nineveh, the Little Zab, south of the Great Zab. The Dila River flows into the Tigris at Baghdad, Iraq. Sumer and Kish before the dispersal of mankind at the Tower of Babel. This region was not called Babylon. It was only after the confusion of the language and the dispersal of the people, that the name Babel was given to the tower. This conclusion is reached by way of logic. What was the name of this region and tower before the confusion of the language and the dispersal? Webster's Dictionary, Gazetteer section, says Sumer is the southern division of ancient Babylon. Moreover, this same dictionary says on page 849, Sumerian, the pre-Semitic population of the lower Euphrates Valley. The pre-Semitic population means that the Black Sumerians were there first. This point is in harmony with my original position that the people in Lower Mesopotamia were Eastern Ethiopians. These Sumerians or Ethiopians and their kindred appear to have settled along tracks from Mesopotamia to India. This area now includes southern Tran, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and northwest India. The first and second allusions to Sumer in the Bible are in Genesis 10:10, 11:1 under the name Shinar. Webster's Dictionary, Gazetteer section, hints to this relationship of Shinar and Sumer. There is definitely a blood relationship between the Dravidian tribes of India and the Ethiopian Sumerians. The Sumerian civilization preceded the Babylonian. The Sumerians founded cities that existed more than 4,000 years BC, such as Eridu, Lagash, Nippur, Kish, and Ur. Archaeologists have found skeletons of ancient Dravidian and Neda types in Ur and Kish. Antiquated Sumerian statuettes resemble the statuettes of the Dravidian civilization. JHE Origin of the white race. After the destruction of mankind by the flood, Noah and his wife, his 3 sons and their wives were the only people that were saved. The sons of Noah were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. From these 3 sons of Noah was the whole earth populated. The ark rested on Mt Ararat. Mt Ararat was located in the land of Armenia. The words Armenia and Ararat mean high ground. The entire earth at this time was of one speech and one language. Most of the people dwelled in the plain of Shinar, in Hebrew, the valley of Shinar. Men began to congregate in the territory and to build a tower up to heaven. The Jewish historian, Flavius Josephus, says, God also commanded them to send colonies abroad for the thorough peopling of the earth, but the people did not obey God. Now, when man was in the process of building the tower, God disapproved of its construction because it showed a disbelief in his word. The divine had promised Noah that he would not destroy the earth by water again. Nimrod, the Ethiopian, was the leader of the conspiracy against God. He was a mighty man and a conqueror. He held the people under his dictatorship. When God considered what had been done, he confused men's language and scattered them toward the 4 directions of the earth. The sons of Noah were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Because the world was populated from these 3 sons of Noah, it is proper to classify men only according to this classify. Cation, Shemites, Hamites, and Japhites, and not Caucasoid, Mongoloid, or Negroid. The latter category is a modern anthropological classification that we will deal with more thoroughly later. The parts of the earth inhabited by the children of Shem were parts of the territory of Assyria and Elam, Persia, east of the Tigris River, the Castern part of Syria, and RTS of the Arabian Peninsula. All the children of Shem were black. This position will be supported by arguments and facts later. The second classification of mankind was the Hamites, who controlled the great centers of civilization in ancient time, 4000 NC, soon after the flood. This civilization included the continent of Africa, the land of Canaan, Israel, parts of Arabia, Syria, Phoenicia, Turkey, Babylonia, southern Persia, Iran, East Pakistan, and a large part of India. The third classification of mankind was the Japhites, from Japheth, who was the youngest son of Noah. The offspring of Japheth occupied the Isles of the Gentiles, the D territories of the Mediterranean Sea in Europe and parts of Asia Minor, whence they dispersed northward over the entire continent of Europe and a great part of Asia. After Noah's ark rested on the mountain of Ararat, and the dispersal of the children of men at the Tower of Babel, Japheth's descendants traveled west, north, and northeast of the mountain of Ararat and the Caucasus Mountains. The Japhites settled near the mountains Taurus and Amanus in Turkey. They journeyed to the river Tanais in southeast Russia, and along Europe to Cadiz, Spain. The sons of Japheth were Gomer, Magog, Javan, Tubal, Meshach, and Tiras, Gen 10:2. Gomer was the ancestor of the first Cimmerians and of the later Cimbri, including other offshoots of the Celtic family, and of the present-day Gaels of Ireland, Scotland, and the Hebrides Islands. These Cimmerians were described by Homer, the Greek, as dwelling in a remote place of mist and gloom. This place was located north of the Black Sea. The second son of Japheth was Magog, the father of the Magogites. Flavius Josephus said that the Greeks called these people Scythians. The Scythians included all the wandering tribes who dwelt mostly near the north of the Black and Caspian Seas. They were regarded by the ancients as tremendously lacking in intelligence and civilization. The third son of Japheth was Madai, the father of the Medes. They were located at the southern part of the Caspian Sea, and they later united with the Persians to form one race. From Javan, the fourth son of Japheth, came the Ionians. And all the Greeks. Tubal, the fifth son of Japheth, is associated with Javan, Isa 66:19, Meshech and Tubal, Isa 26 and 39:1, are nations of the north, north of the focal point of the land of Israel. Josephus identified the descendants of Tubal with the early Iberians, Ibers. They were the inhabitants of territory between the Caspian and Euxine seas, which is Georgia in southern Russia. The last son of Japheth was Tiras, the father or ancestor of the Thracians. This land, Thrace, was situated north of Turkey, Asia Minor, and northeast of Greece. Japheth's grandson, Ashkenaz, formed the Germanic race. In the Hebrew language the word means German. By 378 AV, the Germanic tribes were on the move. They were known under these names: Lombards, Burgundians, Franks, Saxons, Angles, Jutes, Ostrogoths, Visigoths, Swabies, and Vandals. These 10 Germanic barbarian tribes settled all over Western Europe, and intermingled with modern nations of Western Europe as we know them today. All these tribes were the descendants of Japheth. The ancient people did not classify races according to skin color, like the modern nations of Europe and America. The ancients, including the Greeks and Romans, identified people according to their national or weibel names. They used such names as Visigoths, Vandals, Saxons, Ethiopians, Carthaginians, Jews, Arabs, Persians, Babylonians, Egyptians, and Moors. They did not use the term Negro, which is a modern term, to refer to the black races, or the word Caucasian to refer to the white races. Dividing the world along a color line was an idea that originated with the white supremacists in Europe after the Renaissance. The Europeans did not have any great civilization immediately after the fall of Greece and Rome. During the Middle Ages, the black nations of Africa and Asia had the greatest political, economical, educational, and military influence in the world. At this time, Europe existed in a state of darkness for 1,000 years. In the 17th century and later, Europe began to emerge out of the slough of ignorance, and certain Germans and others conceived of themselves as belonging to a superior race. Johann F. Blumenbach, a German, 1752 to 1840, was the first to divide humanity on the basis of skin color. Up to this time, no such attempts had been made. His classification set up a color line, to the detriment of later generations. Mr. Blumenbach classified 5 chief races of mankind: the Caucasian, the Mongolian, the Ethiopian, the American Indians, and Malayan. Moreover, he considered the Caucasian to be the original race. Blumenbach, the anthropologist, named the whites after the Caucasus Mountains. These mountains are situated between the Black and Caspian Seas, because he thought the purest white people originated there. Blumenbach was a racist, and so was J. A. Gobineau. A third man by the name of H.S. Chamberlain wanted to advance the supremacy of the white Nordic race and its culture. These men attributed psychological value and importance to race. This was racism, and it led to a horrible, vicious racial philosophy and to the persecution of the Jews in Nazi Germany. T.R. Garth wrote in his book Race Psychology, 1931, any disposition on our part to withhold from some race the right to a free and full development must be taken as an indication of rationalization on the account of race prejudice, and such an attitude is inexcusable in an intelligent populace. As I have proven, the earliest civilizations began in North Africa and the Middle East among the black races. Read about the black Asiatics in Herbert Wentz 70 began in Babel, a book on the origin of races, pp. 125 to 129, and p. 368. We have more than adequate proof that the white races began near the Caucasus Mountains, and from there they spread north, northwest and northeast into Europe and Asiatic Russia. Now, we know that the Japhites, Europeans, are white today. Were they originally white beginning FRC their ancestor, Japheth, or did a change materialize in the skin color of the descendants of Japheth? This question is difficult to answer. I was told that Japheth was a black man, but he wanted to be white, so God changed him to a white man. Evidence to that theory is lacking. Nevertheless, scientists and anthropologists have found different kinds of mutations in certain parts of the world. A physical mutation is a sudden variation or change, the offspring differing from its parents in some outstanding characteristic, also a major change in the chromosomes or genes that determine herd. Ity. Blonde hair among the black Australian Aborigines is an example of a mutation, and probably albinos are a good example of mutations with their white skin, woolly hair, thick lips, and Ethiopian noses. Any sudden change from the normal is to be regarded as a mutation. Other examples of mutations are blondism or whiteness among monkeys, apes, and chimpanzees. Major mutations or changes took place among the descendants of Japheth. This is obvious because of their white skin. In other words, they were black at one time but their skin changed to white. This phenomenon can be understood in view of the total world population. Over 2/3 of the population of the world consists of colored people. That is a ratio of 2 to 1. 2 out of Noah's 3 sons remained black. We know this to be true because many of the people throughout Africa, Asia, Latin America, and the islands in the Pacific Ocean are yellow, brown or black. They have facial features like the Congoid Africans, especially the Viet Names, Filipinos, the people of India. They are a mixture of black Dravidians and Indo-Europeans, Thailanders, Burmese, Indonesians, Guineans, Sumatrans, and the Aborigines of Australia, etc. You can get a good idea of the features of these people by reading the geographical magazines and observing the foreign students who come from these countries. There was an Indo-European invasion, Germanic, of the Middle East between the years 2000 and 1500 SC. These Germanic tribes intermingled with the black people everywhere they traveled. This mingling made the people in Syria, Babylon, Assyria, Persia, India, and parts of Arabia much lighter in complexion. Now, the color of the people in this region ranges from brown to yellow. The Greek and Roman invasions also made these people in the Middle East lighter. Another fact we should not forget is that the Moors and Arabs from North Africa captured and raped European women. As a result, the North Africans became lighter. At one time, these people in North Africa and the Middle East were all black. Whites have intermingled their blood with blacks in Asia, Africa, and the Western Hemisphere. In spite of this, the colored people of the world control about 3/4 of the Earth's geographical area. Because the colored people of the world are in a majority, it is proper to infer that the whites have always been a minority, and that the black people are the original people of humanity. It is interesting and meaningful to learn that the Japhites, Europeans, traveled northwest, north, and northeast of the mountainous region of the Caucasus into Europe. It gives me the impression that the Japhites were isolated, or that they isolated themselves from the civilization and domination of Nimrod, which began in the land of Mesopotamia. When the Japhites separated at the Tower of Babel, the theory and probability is that they turned white. There are many cases of individuals turning white in Jewish biblical history. When God wanted to show Moses a miracle, he turned his hand white as snow, then he turned it back again to its original color, black. In ancient Israel, when a man had a white spot in his skin, or white or yellow hair, or white skin somewhat reddish, he was pronounced unclean. All people who were victims of this shameful disease were isolated outside of the camp or city. Those that had leprosy were called lepers and they had to shout, "Unclean, unclean." All people in the ancient world who had yellow hair and leprosy were despised and segregated. This is one reason the white supremacists discriminate against the black people today. Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moses and defamed his character because he married an Ethiopian woman. As a punishment, God struck Miriam with leprosy and she turned white as snow. Now, many people have deceived themselves in thinking that Miriam and Aaron spoke against her because she was a black woman, but this is not the case, because Miriam, Aaron, and Moses were all black people. They spoke against Moses because the Ethiopian woman was of a different religion. The color issue did not exist in their day. To prove this point, the Israelites dwelt among the Hamites, Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. They intermarried. All the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and served Baalim, the idol god. Because they served the idol, Baalim, the god of Israel became angry and sold them into slavery. It was the worshipping of the idols, not the marriages, that God disapproved. Marriages were forbidden because God feared that the alien races would persuade the Israelites to worship their idols, but in Moses' case, he had converted the Ethiopian woman to his religion. Miriam and Aaron used the Ethiopian woman as an excuse to challenge Moses' authority. It was a family dispute of jealousy among the three of them. Moreover, Miriam and Aaron were older than Moses. They said, "Hath the Lord indeed spoken only by Moses? Hath he not spoken also by us?" And the Lord heard it. In another case of leprosy, God showed Moses some miracles to display to the children of Israel, that they would believe that Moses was sent by God. In this case Moses' hand turned white. Naaman and Gehazi had leprosy. I will write a summary of this story. Naaman was the captain of the Syrian army. He acquired leprosy, boils and whitening of the skin. He wanted to be cured. Then he heard about Elisha the prophet. Elisha told him to dip 7 times in the Jordan River, in a bait, and he was cured. A reward was offered Elisha, but he refused it. A servant of F named Gehazi wanted the reward that his master, Elisha, refused. Then Gehazi ran to look for Naaman. When he found him, he asked him for the reward and said that his master had sent him. This, of course, was a lie. When Gehazi returned to Elisha, Elisha said, "I know you have gotten garments, olive yards, and all kinds of wealth by means of subterfuge. Therefore, the leprosy that Naaman had will cleave unto you and unto your seed, descendants, forever." And he departed from his presence a leper as white as snow. This type of leprosy affected the reproductive organs, genes and chromosomes that determine hereditary characteristics in his body. This meant all his children would produce white offspring, even though he was a black man at first. This was the curse of Gehazi. Hokkaian culture. Goa to Europe. The Sumerians, Babylonians, and Ethiopians were black people. They contributed much to the advancement of civilization. Because they studied astrology, they were capable of formulating many principles of astronomy. These black people were so sagacious and skillful that they were able to divide the years into months, weeks, hours, minutes, and seconds. In mathematics, they developed the decimal system. The most famous of the Babylonian kings was Hammurabi, who ruled about 2150 SC. He was outstanding for his codification of a system of laws founded on retaliation as the punitive measure for crime. He also established a 7-day week, with the last day a rest day or Sabbath. This idea was adopted by the Hebrews and then transmitted to the Greeks, Romans, and other Europeans. The literature of the Babylonians is quite interesting. Long ago these black people wrote with a sharp instrument on clay tablets. Thousands of these tablets have been found, and some of them disclose a popular work known as the Enuma Elish, or the Creation Epic. The story of how the world began derived from the Babylonians. After the dispersal of mankind at the Tower of Babel, the black Hamites migrated toward the east, south, southwest, and the west. These black Hamites settled in the land of Canaan. Later on it was called Israel. The land of Canaan gets its name from the youngest son of Ham, who was Canaan. The Canaanites were the primordial aborigines of the land of Canaan. We may call them Africans because of their blood relationship to the other inhabitants of the African continent. There were 11 Canaanite tribes living in the land of Canaan and surrounding it before the black Israelites possessed it. The greatest cultural and commercial cities of these black Canaanites were Tyre and Sidon, sometimes written Zidon. This city gets its name from Sidon, the firstborn son of Canaan. The Sidonians and the Tyrians were of the same race, and their kings ruled over both of these cities. In many history books you will read about the Sidonians under the name Phoenicia. The Greeks called the Sidonians Phoenicians, land of palm, because they found many palm trees there, but the Sidonians called their nation by the name of Canaan, Canaan. Phoenicia, or land of the Sidonians, was located to the north of Palestine, along the coast of the Mediterranean Sea, bounded by that sea on the west, and by the mountain ranges of Lebanon on the Cast. Tyre and Sidon were founded about 2300 SC. The Tel El Amarna tablets show that Tyre was a place of great strength in the 15th century NC. Sidon was still older. For a long time it was the only black Phoenician city known to the Greeks. Even after Tyre took the leadership, the Greeks and Hebrews spoke of the Phoenicians Sidonians, and King Ethbal of Tyre is called king of the Zidonians. These black people were proficient in philosophy, astronomy, geometry, arithmetic, and navigation. They had good harbors, which enabled them to navigate to distant lands such as Cyprus, Sardinia, Crete, Rhodes, Cadiz, in Spain, Sicily, Carthage, in North Africa near Tunis, Tangier, Ophir, and the Canary Isles. These Phoenicians were skilled also in metal work, needlework, and embroidery. They extracted dye from shellfish abounding in the adjacent waters. This dye became known later as Tyrian purple. They made glass from the white sand of the Mediterranean coast. The Phoenicians spoke a Hamitic Semitic language so closely allied to the Hebrew that Phoenician and Hebrew, though different dialects, may practically be regarded as the same language. As it was previously stated, there were 11 Canaanite tribes: Sidonians, Hittites, Jebusites, Amorites, Girgasites, Hivites, Arkites, Sinites, Arvadites, and the Hamathites. Hebrew has its origin in the Canaanite language. When Abraham came from the region of Babylon into the land of Canaan, he found the Canaanite language similar to his own language. Abraham communicated very well with the inhabitants of the new land, adopted the Canaanite language, made certain modifications, and it became known as Hebrew. The Hebrew language was very similar to the Canaanite, says the Bible Dictionary. Phoenician or Canaanite can be classified as an African language because the Canaanites were blood brothers of the Egyptians, Ethiopians, Nubians, Sudanese, and other Africans. The Phoenicians established a colony in North Africa called Carthage, and they, the Carthaginians, always considered themselves Canaanites, registered when Moses led the black Israelites out of Egypt, northeast Africa. Moses died in the wilderness. Then Joshua led the Israelites into the land of Canaan and dispossessed the Canaanites. Now, it is written in a Jewish book called the Babylonian Talmud, for when the Africans came to plead against the Jews before Alexander of Macedon, they said Canaan belongs to it is written, the land of Canaan with the coast thereof. And Canaan was the ancestor of these people, ourselves. These Canaanites or Africans were driven out of the land of Canaan by Joshua. About 332 NC. Alexander conquered Palestine. As stated above, the Africans came to Alexander claiming that the land of Canaan belonged to them. The point that I want to elucidate is that these Canaanites considered themselves Africans. Consequently, we can correctly say that the Hebrew Canaanite language is one of the African languages. Many of the private houses of these black people were equipped with cisterns for storing water. The wealth of Phoenicia, or Carthage, was predicated on clandestine, technical procedures in manufacture, secret mines of advantageous and expensive metals, concealed secret trading posts in the remote areas from Ethiopia to the Pillars of Hercules. Their knowledge of navigation enabled them to reach the British Isles and the Arctic Ocean. The English alphabet derived from two ancient black nations, the Phoenician Canaanite alphabet and the Hebrew. The Phoenicians had a powerful navy. They were a great trading people. When the Phoenicians traded with the Greeks did not have an alphabet. As a result, they adopted the Phoenician alphabet in order to transact business. The Greeks passed this alphabet to the Romans, and the Romans transmitted it to the German Anglo-Saxon tribes. Then it was brought to the British Isles. The first two letters of the Phoenician and Hebrew alphabet are Aleph and Bet, which is similar to the world alphabet. The black Phoenicians also gave a system of weights and measures to the Europeans. The city of Carthage was called the Queen of the Sea. The Carthaginians controlled the commerce in the Mediterranean Sea. A new nation emerged in the peninsula of Italy, Rome, which challenged the commercial interest and supremacy of Carthage in the Mediterranean. This state of hostility led to 3 long wars called the Punical Wars. The First Punic War was in the years 264 to 241 SC, mostly naval battles which Italy won. The Second Punic War was fought in the years 218 to 201 C. A black general by the name of Hannibal was the extraordinary figure who did what was considered the impossible by crossing the Alps with elephants. In Italy he was victorious over the Romans. He was very resourceful and crafty. When he got into a difficult situation at one time, he drove herds of cattle into the Romans. His unexpected victories amazed and terrified the city of Rome. But at the end, because of the lack of men and supplies, he had to return to Africa, Carthage. The Third Punic War was in the years 149 to 146 NC, and fought at Zama in Africa. Because of Hannibal's skill in warfare, his strategy is taught in military colleges around the world. The Egyptians are Africans, and descendants of the Hamites. All Hamites are the offspring of their father, Ham. The first Egyptian was called Mizraim according to the Hebrews. This Mizraim was the son of Ham, General 10:6. Ancient and modern scholars have established the location of Mizraim as Egypt. The word Mizraim is a plural form, meaning Upper and Lower Egypt *. About 3,300 years before the Christian Frat, Egypt was divided into two kingdoms. A great black pharaoh, king, named Menes united these two kingdoms by conquest. The later pharaohs wore a dynastic insignia on their crown, the snake of Lower Egypt and the hawk of Upper Egypt, representing the time when Egypt was divided. These subsequent pharaohs held the title of King of Upper and Lower Egypt. After Egypt was united, her navy went out into the Mediterranean and traded with the inhabitants of the coastal towns and islands such as Crete and Cyprus. Thousands of years ago, the Egyptians established powerful governments, and built empires that extended in all directions. They even held dominion over their Canaanite brothers in Palestine.